Hello and welcome to Cooking the Books with Heather. Today we're going to be working once again from Ashley Christensen's Poole's Diner cookbook, and we're going to be making a toasted coconut cream pie with macadamia nut crust. I thought I was done with this book, but we were turning through it and my husband saw this pie and said, "Why haven't you made this for me?" And we had a Thanksgiving potluck coming up and I thought I'd make something for that. And his family likes coconut pretty well, so that's what we're gonna make. A little frustrated with this recipe already, mostly because in the beginning it says that you'll fold the coconut into the pie, and then later on it's hard to figure out what you do with that coconut. In the end, it's not in the pie, it's strained out of the pie, whatever. So I'm gonna try to calm my frustration and just follow the instructions and see what we can do. The first step is to make the crust. Now this is a shortbread crust, so it's not exactly like, a standard pie crust. I've got everything I need almost laid out here. So let's go ahead and get started. We're using a food processor, and we're gonna start with some macadamia nuts. I found ones they call just natural macadamia nuts. I did not go for the salted ones. There is salt in this recipe and I didn't want to have too much. If you can only find salted ones, I would use those and cut down the rest of the salt in the recipe. No big deal. Now I'm just going to put some of the flour that I've already measured out in here, so we can get these nuts started to sort of grind up. And we are going to pulse this. Yep, we're just sort of pulsing it until we get even sized crumbs. So, oops. And I just hit on and not pulse. Okay. So this is not, we're not completely done with this, but they look pretty evenly sized, pretty small, but not tiny. I'm going to call this good. And now we're going to add the rest of our flour. And we have some sugar. This is just plain granulated sugar, so this is going to be a sweeter crust than usual. And we're going to pulse this together just to combine it. That seems good. And now we're going to add the salt that I mentioned previously. This is sea salt, and I chose some fine sea salt, which is what I usually choose when I'm going for sort of a baked good. I usually like the finer crystals, depends on the product I'm looking for, but so I put my salt in here, and now I'm going to add my unsalted butter that I've cut into 1/2 inch cubes. I think I've shown you how I usually do that with a stick before, and I've kept it in the refrigerator so it's cold, so it will sort of become pieces instead of all mushing together. And we're again going to pulse until the butter forms pea-sized pieces. So, okay, I'm gonna call that good. It was like 15 pulses, so 10 to 15 is probably good. And now we're gonna deal with the last 3 ingredients. Be right back. So I need an egg yolk. So I'm gonna go ahead and crack my egg. I'm gonna leave my white in this bowl. And probably cook it up for my dog later. Put my yolk in that bowl. We don't need this for what we're doing right now, so that will go in the refrigerator. I think we're going to end up with a lot of egg whites, actually. I have to figure out something to do with those. So we have our egg yolk. We need some vanilla. Let me wipe my hands. All right. I'm going to put some vanilla in with our egg yolk. some ice water. So I just put it in this little bowl with some ice and some water and left it in the refrigerator until we were ready with my butter. There we go. So everything will remain cold, and we're supposed to whisk this together. So I've got this itty bitty whisk. It's just perfect. And now we are supposed to slowly drizzle this into the food processor while we pulse. So here we go. Now, this is always what happens to me with pie dough and with almost everything. I feel like it's not wet enough. I always feel like my flour is too dry. But it says as soon as it has mostly come together, but I don't feel like it has mostly come together. I feel like it's still really loose. So what I'm going to do, and this is not in the recipe, but I almost always feel like I need extra water. So I'm going to add a little bit more ice water. I'm at least getting some pieces now. So let me feel that. I feel like that is probably good. So we're going to put this into the refrigerator for at least an hour and up to overnight. So I'm going to call this good, and the flour will hydrate and it will sort of come together from here. So I think that's good. Let me show you what we do with this. So we're going to put this onto our plastic wrap and try not to get it off of the plastic wrap too much, even though my countertop is clean. There we go. Now we're supposed to press this into a disc. So that is, let's see, 1 inch thick round disc. So, all right. I say that is good enough, and we're just going to wrap this with the plastic wrap. And this goes into the refrigerator for at least an hour. So we'll be back to actually bake up our pie crust and continue with the recipe. Okay, my crust has been in the refrigerator for like 4 hours now, so plenty of time. I've got my pie plate here. I thought this one would be the prettier one than my standard glass one. It's supposed to be a 9-inch pie. It's roughly what this is. It might be a 10-inch. I'm not sure. It holds more. Might not be quite as deep or quite as full as a smaller one would, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Should be fine. So I've got my disc here that I now need to unwrap. I was supposed to flatten it out a bit with my rolling pin before I put it in the refrigerator, but whatever, it's fine. There we go. So now we have, instead of doing flour, I'm gonna roll this out on wax paper. So let me see the width. Yeah, I should probably get it a circle about as wide as this. So we'll see how well that goes. I love rolling out dough, but flour. I'm gonna put a little bit of flour on my rolling pin because I think it's starting to stick, and I don't want it to stick too much. So I'm just gonna put a little bit on there, a little bit on my rolling pin. Should be okay. And I'm just sort of put this upside down. I think I need it to be a little bit bigger, but it'll stretch a bit when I put it in as well. Hopefully that will fit and cover my pie plate. Guess we'll see. So, I'm going to transfer this to my pie plate. I think I'm going to try to just put it on top, upside down. I'm going to peel this off. This side is a little sticky, but I put a little more water in the dough than she calls for, so that might be my fault. We'll see. Just gonna try to make sure. Now, I'll put a little flour. Just to sort of be able to touch this without it sticking too much to my hands. And now I've made a mess all over my counter when I was trying to avoid that, but whatever. So now we are supposed to trim it to like a 1/2 inch outside of our pie plate, but I don't have that much. So, and crimp it as you like. So, because mine has my pie plate has these nice flutes on it. I'm just going to kind of make sure that it gets all into those bits. Now, that is as it should be, and I need to put this in the freezer for an hour. So I'm going to do that, and we'll be right back to deal with our coconut. So while we're waiting for this to freeze, we'll take care of our coconut. So we have a full coconut. She says to use a young coconut. The young coconuts that I could find descriptions of do not have meat that you can flake. Supposedly it is more gelatinous meat. It's more for drinking the water. It has more water, whatever. And I found a white coconut that was actually larger than the brown coconuts. I'd never seen a white coconut before, but it is what it is. These ones seemed heavier, better than the brown coconuts that I could find. I don't know what the other differences are, but it says that it has tender, flaky meat, delicious in baked goods, beverages, curries, and desserts. So hopefully it'll work just fine. So the instructions on here are slightly different than the instructions in the book, but I'm going to try to use the instructions in the book. But first I'm going to take off the label. So in the book it says to, or on the label it says to poke a hole in the eye, which is what my dad always did, to drain out the coconut water first. I have this, hopefully it'll be large enough for whatever water we have. Seems like there's quite a bit in there. But she says to use the heel of a large knife to cut it from pole to pole, not around the equator, because supposedly that will make it easier to get the meat out. I don't know. I haven't dealt with a full coconut since I lived with my parents, so that's been a really long time. My dad used to do it occasionally, but I buy coconut. She says you can substitute just unsweetened coconut flakes. She wants the larger flakes, not the small shreds, but I'm glad my husband's not watching. He's going to think I'm going to hurt myself with this. think I can probably get the water out now. Let's see. Sun's coming out kind of slowly. I'm gonna let that drain. Well, we are not quite done with that, and we are full up on this measuring cup. So I'm gonna pour from this through the strainer, just so I don't get all of the little bits of hairy stuff that, you know, kind of got stuck in there. There we go. And continue draining this. All right, there we go. We got about 2 cups of coconut water out of that coconut. That is kind of crazy. Okay. Since this is strained, I'm gonna just move it aside where we won't get all of this stuff in it. And now the goal is to basically crack this in half. That's done. Now I'm going to clean everything up just a little bit so that my meat doesn't get quite this dirty. So now, excuse me while I chew on some of the bits of stuff that came out. Coconut. Supposed to use a butter knife to pry the coconut meat from the shell. And it will probably not come out all together. Another cleanup. All right, so now I have a lot of relatively small pieces like this, and they have brown on the outside, which I don't really like, but I'm supposed to shave them, which is working okay with a Y peeler. So I'm gonna leave the brown stuff and let me see. Actually, might as well, I guess, peel off the brown stuff. I'm going to try to just put these small bits aside unless I need them. I am probably not even halfway through my coconut, but I'm going to go ahead and toast up this stuff. It doesn't say what temperature to toast these at. However, the previous step has the temperature at 300 degrees convection. So I'm going to go with 300 degrees convection. The previous step is for baking the crust, which we haven't done yet because this is taking forever. So I'm going to go ahead and bake this for, it says 5 to 8 minutes, stirring halfway through. So I'm gonna put it in for 4 minutes, stir it, and we'll see. This is what it looks like at 4 minutes. It is nowhere near toasty. I'm gonna spread it back out, put it in for another 4 minutes, and check it again. 8 minutes, still not toasty. So back in it goes. I'll be checking it every 4 minutes or so until we start to get toasty. I'm gonna hope I have enough. I'm just done with this whole process. I'm gonna turn my oven up because they are not getting brown at all, and it's been almost 3 times, no, 1.5 times the amount, whatever, that she says is the maximum amount. So given there's no real indication of exactly what temperature we're supposed to roast these at, yeah, I'm going to turn it up to where I need my oven for the crust, because now we have to bake the crust, because it's going to be fully baked before we put the filling in. We're not going to bake it with the filling in. So I need to bake my crust, and I'm going to turn up the oven to where it needs to be for that, and which is 375 convection. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to call this done. Some are really sort of blonde, some are darker. It's fine. I'm still going to have to toast the rest of them. I'm pretty sure that's not going to be enough for the whole recipe, but I'll toast these while I bake my pie crust, because that is the next thing I need to do. So I'm just going to get my pie crust out of the freezer. There we go. Hope my pan doesn't shatter. I've got a piece of parchment paper here and pie weights. I use these beans that I've used over and over and over again, which is fine. They will weight the crust down and hopefully keep it from bubbling up and getting too brown on the bottom. So we're going to cook this at 375 convection, or 400 without convection, for 30 minutes like this, and then we're going to take it out. We're going to take all of this out, and we're going to bake it. We're going to reduce the heat to 300 convection, 325 regular, and cook it for another 10 to 15 minutes, and we want it to be completely cooked at that point. So 30 minutes. I'll show you what it looks like. So I took my pie crust out of the oven at 30 minutes. I've turned the oven down to 300 degrees convection, or 325 regular. And this is what it looks like after I have taken the pie beans, the pie weights, out of my pie. I'm a little concerned that the edges are really dark already, but we're going to continue cooking this at 300 degrees convection for about 15 minutes, but we just want it to be fully golden brown and done. So life happens. Coconut took forever, but my crust is done. I've wrapped it in, it's cooled. I've wrapped it in plastic wrap, and you can keep that at room temperature for like a day. We're gonna make our filling now, and that needs to refrigerate. We're gonna refrigerate it overnight, and we're gonna fill it all up tomorrow, and then we'll be done. So to make the custard here, I have coconut cream. You do not want sweetened coconut cream, which I think they usually call cream of coconut. What you want is unsweetened coconut cream. Now this is, it takes a little more than 1 can, but not 2. So I just kept this to show you guys what it looks like. Coconut cream. It's thick, but it does sometimes separate, but it's thicker than coconut milk. So just putting that over there so I don't forget about it. So I can forget about it. It's not in my way. And then you need some coconut milk. I found this, whoops, that's resealable, so I'll have to find something else to do with it soon. Also unsweetened, just coconut milk. So I'm going to add the coconut milk now to the coconut cream. And we're heating this on medium heat. And then we have some of our roasted coconut. I've already taken out the part that we're going to use just for garnish, but the rest of it is going in here now. So there we go. Our roasted coconut that we spent a lot of time on mostly is going to be in the custard and then strained out. So we're heating this up, medium heat, until it's hot but not boiling. So we don't want it boiling, but we do want it hot. While this is heating, I'm going to go ahead and whip up the eggs with some other ingredients. So we have a medium bowl, and we're going to whip up, we have some egg yolks here, the yolks only. So I have a lot of egg whites to use up. So I'm just going to put these in this bowl. I'm going to add some sugar, again, plain white granulated sugar, and cornstarch. So this is going to be, this along with the egg yolks is going to be what thickens the custard filling. So we have that, and we're just going to, oh, we also need some salt. There's no measurement for salt here. I'm just going to put in a pinch of kosher salt. So, and we're going to whisk these until they're smooth. That's pretty nicely whisked. You probably didn't hear all that because there's a lot of scraping. Because I know what's coming, I'm going to put a non-stick, non-skid pad underneath here, because when this gets hot, we're going to have to add some of this to here really slowly while whisking. We are nearing about 150 degrees. I'm going to call that good for this stage. And I'm going to start adding tablespoons of this until I have approximately a cup in here while I whisk. So we're basically tempering our egg yolks. Except I'm right-handed and this makes it much more difficult. There we go. And now our egg yolks are tempered, and we are supposed to add the rest of this into here, and hopefully it will all fit. If it doesn't, I'm not too concerned. That is most of it, except for the solids. And now I'm going to return it all to the bowl. It's all hot. And again, I'm going to be real messy. I'm going to cook this while whisking over medium heat until it gets to approximately 178 to 185 degrees, which is, you know, when it's thickened. So it's really hard with all of those solids in there to whisk it, but I'm gonna go get paper towel, clean up. So now we just want to cook this until it thickens, and hopefully not too far. All right, there we are. All right, taking it off the heat now. You probably can't see this, but that's all right. And we're just gonna add a little bit of butter, and actually we're supposed to stir this in, not necessarily whisk it, until it's all smooth. So that's unsalted butter, by the way. I think that is good. I'm gonna put this here. And she specifically says to use a sieve set over a plastic bowl. To strain out the solids, which honestly, it makes me feel very, very sad that I spent all of that time on these coconut bits, and most of them are just going to be discarded. Very sad. So I'm a little annoyed because I feel like the butter is not actually mixed in. So I'm gonna see if I can whisk it in. Okay, that's better. Now, take a piece of plastic wrap. I'm gonna push it down until it touches the top of the custard, so that it won't form a skin. See, it's just all pushed down on the custard. And then we're gonna put it in the refrigerator, put the lid on it, put it in the refrigerator, at least 4 hours up to overnight. We're gonna finish this up in the morning, and we'll see you then. Okay, so now it is the next morning. We're preparing to actually eat our pie today. I've got my crust that's been at room temperature overnight, just covered with plastic wrap, and I'm going to keep this for when I put it back in the refrigerator. And we've got our filling here. With the plastic wrap on top, just to keep it from developing a film on top. And so we've got our filling, and I think that this is thin enough for me, but if you wanted to thin it out, you can use a little bit more coconut milk, a tablespoon at a time, whisk it in. That's why I brought a whisk, but I think I'm gonna be fine, so I'm not gonna worry about that. And I'm hoping this is enough to fill this pie, because it seems like not a whole lot once you take out all of those coconut flakes, but we'll see. So I'm just gonna pour it in. This is going to be a pretty thin pie because the filling will not fill it all the way up, which kind of sucks, but we'll live. So I feel like I should have gone with my glass pie pan, which takes a little bit less filling. It's not quite as deep as this, but this will be fine. We do have to put this in the refrigerator for an hour. So I'm going to put the plastic wrap back over it, put it in the refrigerator, and you serve it with your reserved flakes of coconut on top of a mound of whipped cream. So she says soft whipped cream. She doesn't give you any instructions for that. Just, I'm gonna whip up some heavy cream with a little bit of sugar to make it kind of sweet. And we'll top it up when we get there, and we'll be all ready to go. And we'll let you know what we think of it in just a minute. On this episode of Cooking the Books with Heather, you watched me make toasted coconut cream pie with macadamia nut crust from Poole's Diner, Ashley Christensen's Poole's cookbook. And I have to say, this was a lot of work, and it absolutely killed me to put most of the coconut that I had spent so much time trying to pry from the shell and shred, or not really shred, but shave into thin layers and toast in the oven, put them into the custard, and then strain them out. So nobody ever saw them, just a few that were on top. That annoyed me because it was a lot of work. But it was really delicious. It was full of coconut flavor. I'm not sure the toasted coconut flakes that you leave in the custard and then strain out really provided much of that flavor. I mean, you use all coconut in the filling. It's coconut cream, coconut milk, and eggs and sugar, and that's about it. So I'm not sure about that. I wouldn't do it the next time. And in fact, I definitely would just buy coconut flakes. I'm not dealing with a coconut myself again, if I can help it. So that said, everybody enjoyed it. The flavor was delicious. I really enjoyed the crust. It's a shortbread type crust with a little bit of macadamia nuts. It was perhaps a little bit more difficult to cut. And this doesn't save very well. So you want to put the whipped cream and the coconut shavings on at the last minute, and then eat it. Try to eat it all. Because while it still tastes okay afterwards, the coconut that you put on top doesn't stay as crispy and toasty as it is. It just sort of becomes, it gathers up the moisture from the whipped cream and the custard, and it is just a little bit chewier. Wasn't awful, but it's at its best sort of immediately after you do those things. But it is great since you don't have any of that coconut in the pie. This is great for somebody who can't necessarily eat the fibrous coconut. So it's easy to avoid that part. So yeah, I would make this again, but definitely differently. So if you decide to make it, please let me know what you think. And if you have a better way to deal with the coconut rather than the novice and absolutely time-consuming and horrible way that you may have seen me do here, I don't know how much my editor's going to cut out, probably quite a lot because it took forever. Let me know in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed watching me make this, and if you maybe laughed at me while I prepared the coconut, give me a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and come back and watch me make something else next week.